But get back to this. What is the miry clay in Daniel 2? Miry clay is clay made from mire or dust. It's very brittle. When you get to Daniel chapter 2, verse 43, I remember I must have read this hundreds of times over 30 years and never noticed what it said. Shame on me. And Daniel's interpreting this vision. He says, whereas thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. Whoops. Wait a minute. What did he say? See, it's a person. The clay represents some kind of people. It's miry clay, they, switches to a personal pronoun, shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. In order to mingle with the seed of men, they have to be something other than the seed of men. I have had this checked by experts. That's what the Hebrew requires. Whatever they are, they're not the seed of men. What are they? I don't know. Are they Nephilim? Possibly. Are they genetically engineered clones? Possibly. But whatever they are, they apparently are a political constituency that is substantial in the scheme of things here. Whereas thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave to one another, even as iron is not mixed with the clay. And he goes on. Mingle themselves with the seed of men. Interesting phrase.
The abduction phenomenon, hybridization, which, by the way, is a Bible theme. You know, when it comes to these strange things, you know, in Daniel chapter 2, at verse 43, whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, as iron is not mixed with clay. And they are not human beings. And they are attempting to mingle their seed with human beings. Well, Daniel says this is going to be a latter-day event.
It's one of the most profound pieces of evidence we had was a four-fingered handprint that was found on a wall at an abduction site. A person was taken from the bedroom, okay, and it gets even stranger. Half of the bed had magnetic properties. The other half of the bed didn't. And on the wall, right next to the bed, was a four-fingered handprint the size of a child's, which fluoresces under fluorescent light. We took that into the lab. We took a sample of that, put it under a scanning electron microscope with an EDX feature, and what we saw, and I asked the technician right on camera, is this a human print? And he looks at me and he goes, no, it's not. It doesn't have any of the properties that a human hand would leave on a wall.
Well, now, for decades, abductees have been saying that these little people who took them had small three-fingered hands, 3 fingers and a thumb.
Right.
And that they were not human at all.
With larger than normal pads on the ends of the tips of the fingertips.
Yeah.
Because normally if you lay your hand flat against the wall, you get a hand print, but the ends of your fingers don't end up being larger. And
they were sort of bulbous shaped. Yeah. Each finger and the end could have ballooned out, which is not a human, it's just not a human handprint, period. I think it comes down to where Jesus warns us it'll be like the days of Noah when the Son of Man returns. We talked about this before. It's in all of our books and DVDs. And Jesus warns us it'll be like the days of Noah. Well, what's going on with the days of Noah? We've got the presence of the fallen angels coming down, having sex with the women, and creating this hybrid being known as a Nephilim. Well, are we seeing anything like that in modernity? The answer, in my opinion, is yes. We're seeing a very vigorous breeding program that's taking place. Dr. Jacobs, who we interviewed for Watcher 7, talks about this. He's in despair at what he sees, and he doesn't have a Christian perspective like we do. So he looks at this, and he's in absolute despair. I look at the phenomenon, and I say, oh my gosh, the fallen angels, the fallen angelic hosts, are doing exactly what they did in the days of Noah. They are messing with the gene pool, and in my opinion, attempting to create man in their own image.
And so through gene splicing, there's other scriptures, I got this all in my book, on the whole purpose and reason for it. It's not just a hybridization program, it's a self-redemption program is what they're trying to do. They're trying to imitate somehow the best of both worlds, imitate something of the resurrected body, which I think is already DNA encoded into our own makeup.
Most of the people who have contacted you, do they describe similar occurrences?
Well, quite a few of the women in particular described the very same typical things. I had one woman. She was when she was a little girl. Now she was a pastor's kid. When she was a little girl, and I think around puberty or more, they took her to the doctor for a physical examination, full physical, and the doctor came back. Now her problem was she had 30-some years of guilt as to what happened in her life. Why did she go through what she went through? At 14 or 15 years old, the doctor, after examining her, came and to her, pulled her away from her parents privately and said, "Okay, dear, when did you lose your virginity?" And she says, "Well, I haven't. I'm a virgin. I've never had, I've never been with anyone." And the doctor says, "No, you've been pregnant. When did you get an abortion?" She broke out in tears. She was horrified by that. So she carried this guilt for like 30-some years. When she ran into me, she began to tell me how she would have the nosebleeds, the ringing in the ears, the dreams about, stick men and all the other things. And it was very obvious that she had this experience in her past. She was still, most of that had left her, but she was still once in a while getting frightened, feeling a presence of something in her room, and was never at peace, but she always had this guilt.
Are they harvesting children?
That's probably part of it, because they're doing this in increments, in a gene splicing thing where they can't produce the final end product of their desire or goals, so they have to do everything progressively in increments. And I think that's what's probably happening now. Some people say, "Oh, that's horrible. God wouldn't allow that to happen." Well, no, I'm sorry. I got scriptures that can show you that can happen and is happening.
Where are they putting these people?
I be honest with you, I have no idea. I really don't know. Perhaps underground complexes, bases. Some of them working in conjunction with other human agents.
10,000 people disappear right out of the United States every year. 10,000 people. They're gone. They don't know where they are.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Well, and something is going on, and it's pretty blood-curdling when you come to begin to realize, what's happening. Yes, I have one case that, I hate to say it, it was a pastor who interfered and kept me from getting, I had an MRI scan that proved that this woman was impregnated. Her husband was a missionary away on a short-term mission. She had no sexual relations with anyone. She was devastated by this. How could she be possibly pregnant? She was having nightmares of little gray guys coming in the night. Well, she just considered them as dreams. Nothing was really happening. 2 months after pregnancy, she's no longer pregnant.
Dr. David Jacobs has spent 25 years researching the abduction phenomena.
A typical abduction event is a person is taken out of their normal environment. They're then placed on this table, and they have an examination of sorts. And I say of sorts because it's not a normal kind of examination. Routinely, sperm is taken and eggs are harvested.
There was another room that was there, and in this particular place, you could see hundreds of what looked like aquariums. And all these fetuses were in them. And I remember thinking, oh my God, and realized that they're coming, implanting women, and then they come back and they remove fetuses from us.
And this is what virtually all women say. And the goal is the production of these hybrid human-looking beings. Cross between alien and human.
It all became very clear what was going on. I always seemed to have female-type problems, and my mother had them as well. We would be pregnant, and then we would no longer be pregnant. We'd have miscarriages, but never actually found a fetus. Sorry.
And that was there is a current contemporary phenomenon that smacks of exactly what was happening in DNA harvesting in the ancient world, and it's recorded not just by theologians, but actually some of the best secular researchers into UFO are coming across the same phenomenon, harvesting.
Now, L.A. has written a trilogy called the Nephilim Trilogy, and you've written a book called Alien Interviews. If you kind of synthesize all that, Tom just said that you kind of pioneered study in this field. We're really bringing Genesis 6 into the modern era, right?
I would certainly, concur with that. Well, what's interesting about that passage in Daniel is it uses the word cleave. They will not cleave. Their seed will not, mingle with men. They will not cleave. And that word cleave is the same word that we get in Genesis in regard to marriage. And what's interesting, and this takes a minute to set up, what we see in the so-called alien abduction scenario, we see, and this is just a thumbnail sketch of it, the women are taken, they're against their will, they're floated through walls, which gets into some sort of another type of manipulating matter in physics in ways that we don't know. They're taken aboard a ship, they're impregnated somehow, they find themselves 2 to 3 months later, they realize that they're pregnant, they're re-abducted, the child, the fetus, is then taken from them. So what we see here is a similarity that harkens back to Genesis, where the fallen angels, and I believe that's what we're looking at here. When we say alien / fallen angel, that, in my opinion, is what we're looking at. And the idea that in Genesis 6 there was marriage, they took whoever they wanted, but they were wives. The word is cleave. There was marriage. Today that doesn't exist. They take the women. There is no marriage ceremony or anything like that. They impregnate them. There's a breeding program. And the breeding program today, in my opinion, is similar to that of Genesis, except they're trying to produce, not giants, they're trying to produce a human being that will look like us, but will be completely demonically enhanced.
Michio Kaku is a theoretical physics professor, and back on the screen, what is it? We don't know. We are stumped. Scientists around the world are saying, what the heck is this object?
Sons of God saw the daughters of men that they would bear.
Look at that.
And they took them wives of all which they chose.
Oh my gosh.
There were giants in the earth in those days. And also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them,
What is that?
the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown.
Oh my gosh.
Disclosure is very close, and the American people need to prepare themselves very soon for an announcement from our government that there is, in fact, extraterrestrial presence engaging this planet and the human race.